I'm Tiziana Deering. Startups in Massachusetts that build and design ships have raised a lot of money recently. One of the reasons? No people. Several are getting into the business of crewless naval ships. And Scott Kirshner, columnist for our editorial partner MassLive, says the defense sector is very interested. Scott, how interested are they?
There are billions of dollars in the big, beautiful bill that passed earlier this year and turned into law for unmanned systems. And so you can tell the Pentagon and this part of the Pentagon called DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, are really interested in developing these uncrewed ships, or they call them USVs, unmanned surface vessels.
So who's getting the money in Massachusetts and what are they doing with it?
I got interested in this story because we have such a long shipbuilding history in the Boston area. People may remember that there was a big shipyard in Quincy. There was a shipyard in Charlestown. Old Ironsides was built in the North End way, way back.
Right.
And so you have these companies in the Boston area, in Lexington, some with offices in Rhode Island and Boston. And they're collecting millions of dollars now to start building prototypes of new unmanned ships. And you could think about them broadly in two categories. Small ships that are going to be uncrewed and operate pretty close to shore. Some of them are working on big 100 or 150-foot long ships that really are going to be able to go to the open ocean and stay out there potentially for months.
To carry containers, to carry people? Are we talking about transport or warfare here?
Well, everybody is really good about not talking about weaponizing this technology because they know that's the controversial thing here. So they're talking initially, there's a company called Blue Water Autonomy that's based in Lexington, and they talk about an ocean-going pickup truck. We want to carry what basically are shipping containers on the back. And the Navy could be interested in moving supplies and cargo around. They're definitely going to be interested in having surveillance technology, surveillance gear on these ships to be able to better monitor what's happening in conflict zones without putting humans at risk. And then there definitely is a plan to put weaponry, to put missiles on these ships eventually.
All right, I want to get to the ethics of that in a minute. But in the meantime, when we're talking about crewless ships, sort of on the continuum from pure sci-fi to it'll be tomorrow, where are we in the technology right now?
I would say it's still the early innings for this technology, but people expect it to develop really quickly because of the lower cost and because it doesn't put human crew members at risk.
So now let's pick up this doesn't put human crew members at risk. There are hundreds of years of ethics, both in discussion and sort of adopted codes about the relationship between who's supposed to be at risk in combat, meaning the combatants, who's not, right? For example, civilians, and how something that's remote, that you can't get shot back at, right? How it changes that ethical calculus. As you talked to the companies that are in this space, are they thinking about that?
It's definitely something that the military has been thinking about for at least 25 years, maybe more. I've been covering airborne drones since the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And the conversation has always been about there needs to be a human in the loop. And the military has lots of systems today, whether they're airborne drones or satellites, where there isn't an actual human laying eyes on the target in the way that you might have in World War II, looking through a gun sight at a factory on the ground. And so they do talk about humans being in the decision-making loop. But look, we have already seen tragic mistakes with unmanned drones of all countries attacking the wrong place. And that's definitely an issue that these companies are going to have to think about and that the military has been thinking about for a long time.
Scott Kirshner is columnist from our editorial partner, MassLive. You can read his full piece at masslive.com. Scott, thanks as always.
Thanks so much.